The newsroom fell silent as the emergency broadcast signal pierced through the static. What followed wasn't a warning about natural disasters or terrorist attacks. It was something far more terrifying, the truth. In the city of Meridian, where headlines were manufactured and reality was edited for maximum impact, one journalist was about to discover that the most dangerous weapon in the world wasn't a nuclear bomb or a chemical agent. It was a story. And tonight, that story would tear apart everything she thought she knew about the world she helped create. Maya Chun had been grinding through another 18-hour day at Channel 7 News when the first anomaly appeared on her screen. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting their cold glow across rows of desks where journalists crafted tomorrow's anxiety. She'd been in this business for 12 years, climbing from intern to senior producer, and she knew the formula by heart. Fear sells, outrage drives engagement, and the truth was whatever version got the most clicks. The newsroom operated like a well-oiled machine of manufactured crisis. Every morning, the editorial team would gather around a conference table covered in charts showing viewer engagement metrics, social media sentiment analysis, and psychological impact assessments. They weren't just reporting news. They were architecting emotional responses, carefully calibrating each story to trigger maximum psychological investment from their audience. Maya had long ago stopped questioning the ethics of it all. The mortgage on her downtown apartment, the car payments, the promise of promotion. These practical concerns had gradually eroded whatever journalistic integrity she'd once possessed. Besides, she told herself, they were just giving people what they wanted. If viewers craved drama, conflict, and constant stimulation, who was she to deny them? But tonight felt different. The story that landed on her desk came with unusual instructions from the executive producer. Run this exactly as written. No edits. No fact-checking. Just put on air. The directive came from someone she'd never seen before. A man in an expensive suit who'd been whispering with the network executives all afternoon. The story itself seemed routine enough. A series of protests in the warehouse district. Some minor property damage. A few arrests. But as Maya read through the details, something felt off. The timeline didn't quite add up. The quotes seemed too perfectly crafted. And the photos, there was something about the lighting, the angles, the way the crowd was positioned that reminded her of a movie set rather than authentic journalism. She tried calling the police department for confirmation, but the desk sergeant claimed no arrests had been made that day. The fire department had no record of the reported incidents. Even the businesses supposedly affected had no knowledge of any protests. Yet here was a complete story, ready to broadcast, with video footage and eyewitness accounts that painted a picture of a city on the brink of chaos. If you're finding this story as compelling as Maya did, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. We're just getting started, and you won't want to miss what happens next in this journey through the dark side of modern media. Against her better judgment, Maya decided to investigate. She started with the video footage, running it through analysis software that could detect digital manipulation. What she found made her stomach drop. The protesters in the background were duplicated, the same faces appearing multiple times in different parts of the crowd. The damage to storefronts had been digitally enhanced. Even the police cars in the shots were computer-generated models superimposed onto real street footage. But if the story was fabricated, why was her network pushing it so hard? Maya began digging deeper, accessing files she technically wasn't supposed to see. What she discovered was a coordinated campaign involving multiple news outlets, social media platforms, and even government agencies. The fake protest story wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of a massive operation designed to destabilize public trust and create social division. The documents she found revealed a chilling truth. Her network, along with dozens of others, had been infiltrated by an organization that viewed news media not as a tool for information, but as a weapon for social control. They called it narrative warfare, the systematic manipulation of public perception through carefully crafted stories designed to trigger specific emotional and behavioral responses. The operation had been running for years, gradually escalating the intensity of their manufactured crises. They would create fake events, amplify minor incidents into major catastrophes, and pit different groups against each other through selective reporting and strategic misinformation. The goal wasn't just profit. It was a complete erosion of society's ability to distinguish between truth and fiction. Maya traced the funding back through shell companies and offshore accounts, discovering a network of wealthy individuals and corporations who benefited from social instability. They made money from security contracts, private prisons, surveillance technology, and the fear-based consumer spending that accompanied social unrest. The more divided and frightened the population became, the more power and profit they accumulated. As she delved deeper into conspiracy, Maya began to understand her own role in the machine. Every sensationalized headline she'd written, every story she'd edited for maximum emotional impact, every time she'd chosen ratings over truth, she had been an unwitting participant in the systematic destruction of social cohesion. The realization hit her like a physical blow. She tried to reach out to colleagues at other networks, hoping to find allies who might help expose the truth. But the few who would speak to her revealed an even more disturbing reality. Most of the journalism industry was either complicit or too terrified to resist. Those who had tried to speak out had been discredited, fired, or worse. The organization behind the operation had infinite resources and no moral boundaries. The weight of her discovery was crushing. Maya realized that she wasn't just uncovering a story. She was potentially signing her own death warrant. The people behind this operation had demonstrated their willingness to destroy anyone who threatened their control, and now she knew too much to simply walk away. The breaking point came when Maya discovered the next phase of the operation. Hidden in the encrypted files was a detailed plan for something called a convergence, a series of coordinated fake events designed to trigger nationwide martial law. The fabricated protests were just the beginning. The plan included manufactured terrorist attacks, staged riots, and even fake natural disasters, all designed to justify the complete suspension of civil liberties. The timeline was aggressive. The first major event was scheduled for the following week. Maya realized she had perhaps days to expose a conspiracy before it became too powerful to stop. But every move she made was being monitored. Her phone calls were intercepted. Her emails were tracked, and she was certain that her apartment was under surveillance. In a desperate move, Maya decided to go live on air during the evening broadcast. She would interrupt the regular programming and expose everything she had discovered. It was professional suicide, but it might be the only way to warn the public before it was too late. The evening of the broadcast, Maya arrived at the studio with copies of all the evidence hidden in multiple locations. Her hands shook as she prepared to destroy her career and possibly her life. But as she looked around the newsroom, at her colleagues unknowingly participating in the destruction of truth itself, she knew she had no choice. The moment came during a commercial break. Maya had exactly 3 minutes to get to the anchor desk and override the teleprompter system. She moved quickly, her heart pounding as she uploaded the evidence to the broadcast servers. The red light came on, signaling they were live, and Maya began to speak. Good evening. What you're about to hear will challenge everything you think you know about the news you watch every day. She could see the confusion in the control room, the frantic gestures of the producers trying to cut the feed. But Maya had anticipated this, rerouting the signal through backup systems that would take them precious minutes to disable. Before we see how Maya's desperate gambit plays out, remember to subscribe to this channel and hit that like button. This story represents the kind of deep, thought-provoking content we bring you regularly, and your support helps us continue creating these narratives that matter. Maya managed a broadcast for exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds before the feed was cut. In that brief window, she had revealed the existence of conspiracy, shown samples of the fabricated evidence, and named some of the key players involved. The video went viral within hours, spreading across social media platforms faster than the conspirators could suppress it. But the response wasn't what Maya had hoped for. Instead of widespread outrage and demands for investigation, the public reaction was divided and confused. Many viewers dismissed her revelations as the ravings of a disgruntled employee. Others claimed it was itself a false flag operation designed to distract from real conspiracies. The very population she had tried to save seemed incapable of processing the truth. The organization struck back swiftly and brutally. Within 24 hours, Maya's professional reputation was destroyed. Stories appeared across multiple networks painting her as mentally unstable, financially desperate, and possibly connected to foreign intelligence services. Her bank accounts were frozen, her apartment was searched by federal agents, and former colleagues publicly distanced themselves from her. Maya found herself trapped in a nightmare where the truth had become just another competing narrative. The evidence she had so carefully preserved was dismissed as sophisticated forgeries. The documents she had risked everything to obtain were declared fabrications by the same networks that had been unwittingly broadcasting lies for years. She realized that the conspiracy was even more insidious than she had imagined. It wasn't just about controlling information. It was about destroying the very concept of truth itself. By flooding the information landscape with contradictory narratives, fake evidence, and competing versions of reality, they had created a world where nothing could be definitively proven or disproven. Maya went into hiding, moving from safe house to safe house, watching as the country gradually descended into the chaos that the conspirators had engineered. The manufactured crises became real ones as communities turned against each other, unable to agree on basic facts about their shared reality. The distinction between authentic and artificial events became meaningless as society lost its ability to process truth. From her exile, Maya watched the final phase of the operation unfold. The convergence happened exactly as planned, but by then the population was so divided and confused that they couldn't mount any meaningful resistance. The suspension of civil liberties was welcomed by many as a necessary response to the chaos that had been deliberately created. Years later, Maya lived under an assumed identity in a small town far from the urban centers where the information war had been fought and lost. She worked as a librarian, surrounded by physical books that contained truths that could not be digitally manipulated or remotely edited. The irony wasn't lost on her. She had become a guardian of the very medium that the digital age had made obsolete. The world had changed in ways that most people couldn't even perceive. The news still existed, but it had become pure entertainment, divorced from any pretense of truth or accountability. People consume information like a drug, getting their daily dose of outrage and validation without any expectation that it might actually inform them about reality. Maya often thought about the colleagues she left behind, wondering if any of them had realized what they had become part of. The machine continued to run, generating endless streams of manufactured crisis and artificial controversy. But now it operated openly, with no need for secrecy or subterfuge. The population had been successfully conditioned to accept that truth was relative, that facts were negotiable, and that reality itself was subject to interpretation. In her quiet moments, Maya reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point. She had started as someone who believed in the power of information to enlighten and educate. She had become someone who used that power to manipulate and control. And finally, she had tried to use the truth as a weapon against those who trafficked in lies. The most painful realization was that her own hands were not clean. For years, she had been part of a system that eroded public trust in journalism. Every sensationalized headline, every story crafted for maximum emotional impact, every time she had chosen engagement over accuracy, she had helped create the conditions that made the conspiracy possible. Maya understood now that the real tragedy wasn't just the existence of conspiracy, but the fact that it had been built on a foundation that legitimate journalists like herself had helped create. The public's inability to distinguish between truth and fiction hadn't happened overnight. It had been cultivated over years of declining standards and increasing sensationalism. The lesson she carried with her was both simple and profound. Truth is not a commodity to be manufactured, packaged, and sold. It is a sacred trust between those who seek it and those who report it. Once that trust is broken, once the line between information and manipulation becomes blurred, the very foundations of democratic society begin to crumble. Maya had learned that the most dangerous lies are not the obvious ones that people can easily identify and reject. The most dangerous lies are the ones that contain just enough truth to be believable, that appeal to existing prejudices and fears, that confirm what people already want to believe. These lies don't just misinform. They corrupt the very process by which people distinguish between true and false. As she locked up a library each evening, Maya would look out at the town's quiet streets and wonder if the truth she had tried to preserve would ever matter again. The world had moved on, adapted to a new reality where information was power and power was everything. But in her small corner of that world, surrounded by books that contained unchanging truths, she kept the faith that somewhere, somehow, the distinction between truth and lies still mattered. The chapel bells in the town square would ring each evening at sunset, their sound carrying across the empty streets, like a reminder of simpler times when communities shared common truths and common values. Maya would listen to those bells and remember that even in a world consumed by manufactured chaos, there were still places where authentic human connection could exist. Her story had become a cautionary tale about the price of abandoning truth in pursuit of engagement, profit, and power. But it was also a story of redemption, of one person's attempt to restore meaning to a world that had forgotten the difference between information and manipulation. In the end, Maya realized that the battle for truth is not won or lost in newsrooms or broadcast studios. It is won or lost in the hearts and minds of individuals who choose, moment by moment, to value truth over comfort, accuracy over entertainment, and genuine understanding over manufactured outrage. The signal she had tried to broadcast that night had been more than just an exposé of a conspiracy. It had been a call to remember that in a world of infinite information, the most precious commodity is not data or content or engagement metrics. It is a simple, radical act of caring whether something is true or false. And in her quiet library, surrounded by books that contain truths tested by time, Maya continued to tend that flame, hoping that someday, someone would remember why it mattered. If this story resonated with you, we'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Tell us what city you're watching from, and let us know what song or band you'd like to see us create a narrative around next. Your engagement helps us continue bringing these thought-provoking stories to life, and we're always looking for new inspiration from our community. Don't forget to subscribe for more content like this, and thank you for joining us on this journey through the darker corners of the human experience.